Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's American Ambulance Association webinar. This webinar is being recorded. The recording link and slide deck will be published in the next digest for AAA members. This is a highly interactive session, so to ask questions, please use the Q&A function where you'll be able to see, comment, and vote on other questions. We're going to answer the questions as we go along, and with that is my pleasure and excited to introduce and hand it over to our communications chair and co-chair, Alexia and Randall.
Good morning.
Hello, everybody.
I realize it's afternoon for some folks that are joining us. So, hi, I'm Alexia Jobson. I'm the Director of Public Relations at Remsa Health in Reno, Nevada. And I am excited to be presenting this webinar with Randall. If you want to give yourself a quick introduction.
Hi, I'm Randall Mann, Vice President of Marketing and Public Relations for Acadian Ambulance Service. We're headquartered in Lafayette, Louisiana. And Vice Chair of Communications, although Alexia does all the work.
No, it is a team project. So I'm excited for us to go ahead and get started. We have several things to cover today, so we'll go ahead and just jump right into the session. As Emily mentioned, we're happy to answer some questions if you want to post them up in the Q&A as we go. So as we talk through today, we are going to cover these highlights. We're going to touch on guiding principles for planning during your EMS week and your public relations activities. We'll identify some compelling stories and create impactful messages, talk about how we can do that. The best ways to engage with local media, and then a couple of tools to make it easier to accomplish all of these things. So the first thing that I wanted to chat about are the guiding principles for EMS week. And obviously, these are going to look different for every organization. These are some samples that have worked for Remsa Health in the past and that we actually have as part of our planning for this year. And so I think it's really important to take a little time at the beginning. So you may be past this point already. If not, it's probably not too late to just kind of refocus on what is guiding your activities and your outreach and PR efforts around EMS week. So for us, it's really important that we focus on events and gestures that are meaningful to employees. Sometimes committees or leaders can kind of get a little bit off track and do what is either easiest or fastest or feels best for them, when really we want to be focusing on celebrating our employees. Expressing appreciation, ensuring celebrations extend across all shifts and locations. This is another one that we've really had to focus on, especially as our organization has grown over the past number of years, and making sure that everybody feels included and has opportunities to participate. Enhancing external reputation of the organization, and that's probably where we'll focus a majority of our conversation today on. And then improving mental and physical wellness for our employees. So these are some of the guiding principles we use when we're thinking about how we want to prioritize our budget and our time and our resources for EMS week. Next, I think it's really important to also be honest, mostly with yourselves, but also, of course, managing expectations about what can actually be accomplished. And I think, even if you have a big team, many people, all the way down to a one-person PR shop, so to speak, who maybe this isn't even your primary responsibility. This is particularly important to be real about what can be done during EMS week. So I think it's reasonable for us, for example, to identify between 1 and 3 maybe media stories that we want to actively pitch during EMS week. We definitely will make a week-long social media calendar, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about each of these and how we tackle them. We have a social media calendar going on all the time, but then for EMS week, we kind of blow that out a little bit more and get a little more into detail there, and then determine which stakeholders matter the most. Obviously, your internal audience is key, but then when you think about outside of your organization and how you want to maximize your time and energy, you want to think about which stakeholders are the most important there. And then a quick pro tip, because I think it just bears reminding, as we all know, expect everything to take longer than you planned. And so I think, when we talk about coordinating with the media, developing that pitch, getting it to the right reporter, coordinating when the reporter will come and actually do the story, making sure you set up time with your interviewee and prep them, right? All of that takes more time than we think about just, accommodating a quick interview with a reporter. So that's some of the things that you want to keep in mind as we talk through some of these tactics. So when we think about our external stakeholders, which is these different groups of audiences and of partners that we work with as EMS agencies, we want to think about if this is the right time. Is EMS Week the right time to engage with them? Are there opportunities where we can kind of foster partnerships or rebuild some relationships if necessary? So a few of these include our co-response agencies, so fire, police, sheriff's department, things like that, agencies that we interact with on a regular basis out on scenes. Electeds and appointed. So maybe you have oversight bodies or city councils, or maybe there's some, important legislation happening in your state right now, and you want to engage with some of those state legislators. So think about your electeds. Your hospital partners. This is a group that's really supportive, I know, of our organization during EMS Week. And so I think that's a good one to keep in mind. Business leaders, if there's either key vendors or some of those businesses that you interact with, maybe you have a post near a certain, mom and pop shop or something like that. That's always a nice way to engage with those folks. And then hometown favorites. Maybe you have a kind of famous university athletic coach, or there's a local celebrity or an influencer that you might be able to engage. So just you want to kind of think a little bit outside of your normal internal audience for this. All right. So what can we do with some of these external stakeholders once we decide that we want to engage them? So there are a couple of options here. We can invite hospitals to host a small event. Again, I know that this happens for us here in Reno. Maybe they host barbecue or an ice cream bar or something like that, ideally on their property for crews to enjoy throughout the day as they take patients and, spend a little rest and respite time there, engaging with hospital staff. Maybe coordinate with a hospital on a clinical excellence recognition. So again, we have a local hospital, and this actually was their idea several years ago. They wanted to start recognizing these specific cardiac arrest saves. And it really is a great way to engage everybody from the dispatcher all the way through the crews. Oftentimes there are co-response partners. So it's a really nice opportunity for the hospital to recognize the clinical excellence and care within EMS Week, which I think sometimes it's easy to forget that at the end of the day, we are in fact providing healthcare and clinical excellence, and we want to kind of keep that focus there, especially through EMS Week. Invite your stakeholders to the awards event. We host a specific awards event where we take nominations for a couple months before EMS Week, and then we award, Providers of the Year, Clinical Excellence Awards. And I think that it's a great opportunity to include particularly elected and appointed officials in the awards event. It's a great opportunity for them to kind of shake hands, thank the providers, hear really about the extraordinary work that these award winners do in their community every day. And I think another way to kind of go above and beyond is maybe to even recognize a stakeholder with a special EMS Week related award. So maybe Mayor Jane Doe is your EMS champion that year, and you can list off a couple of reasons why. And I think like AAA has some good examples about how they select their legislators of the year and things like that, for you to turn to for some inspiration about how you can select those folks for that particular kind of award. And then, of course, invite stakeholders to do a ride along, a fly along, or a sit along, maybe with your dispatch center. I think giving them a chance to come in during EMS Week in particular is a great time for them to connect with those frontline personnel and really expand their understanding and knowledge about what our folks do on a day-to-day basis. And this can be, we've done ride alongs from 8 hours to 90 minutes. And so I think if you can work internally to make sure that they have a good experience, you can maximize any amount of time that you're willing to engage with your stakeholders on that. And then invite stakeholders to distribute swag or food to engage with crews, dispatchers, staff. So, I'm thinking here like elected officials or those business partners that you might have in the community. Maybe they come to your posts and just drop off donuts, or, that they can meet the crews after shift if you have one central location where they can just kind of say, hey, thanks, we appreciate what you do for our community on a daily basis. And we see you and we're here to celebrate you. I think it's also important to call out for these activities that it may require that you as the agency coordinate them. Perhaps you have to buy the ice cream or the barbecue supplies, and that you have to kind of set up the table or arrange the ride along, pick up and drop off, whatever it is. So I do not in any way want to make this sound like we just call up a hospital and say, hey, want to host a barbecue? And then that's it. So this is important to remember that we may have to facilitate some of these things. All right, so we are ready to make some media pitches about some of the great stories that we have within our agency all year round, but we want to shine a light on it, particularly during EMS week. And so these are just a couple that I kind of came up with off the top of my head, but I'm sure each agency has things that are particular to them. And so I want to call out that if there is a special differentiator that you have in your organization, that is always a great way to start. So think about what sets your organization apart and see how you can develop that a little bit. And I want to also call out that I go oftentimes to my colleagues throughout the organization and say, I really want to highlight a dispatch story during Telecommunicators Week, for example. What do we have? And they're the pros, right? They're the ones sitting in the center, hearing the calls, talking to their frontline dispatchers, knowing what it is that was a significant call or how somebody handled it really well. And so be sure to reach out to your coworkers inside your organization for those story scoops, because we as the PR folks, or if you're an ops person working as a PR person during EMS week, some of those things just don't find their way to us on a regular basis, and we have to really track them down. So a couple of these ideas here: provider, dispatcher, patient reunion stories, I think are always a winner. So, and I do, for us in our organization, it's important that we loop in that dispatcher, since they're a very important part of that chain of care, and then connecting the provider and the patient. You want to obviously make sure everybody on your side is comfortable with this reunion, is interested in participating before you pitch it. But I think that making that human connection is always great. Of course, the awards event, I think about some of the extraordinary stories that I've heard from like the Stars of Life that the AAA does. And I just think, man, those are incredible stories about the way these providers and healthcare professionals contribute and care for people on an individual basis, literally reaching out to, stop someone as they're jumping off a bridge, to, as a whole organization, mobilizing units to go support other, places impacted by natural disaster. So it's a whole wide spectrum of recognition that can be acknowledged at the awards event. And I think there are so many great stories there that the media would love to tell. Of course, some community education and instruction is a great way to kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you will. You can get out there, connect with your community, provide some education, and then, of course, amplify that message by inviting the media to attend and cover it. A ride along, fly along, sit along, even a stalk along again. I think so many people don't realize all of the behind the scenes work that goes into preparing an ambulance or a helicopter for a shift out in our communities. And so letting them kind of shadow a logistics technician for a couple of hours might be an interesting pitch for them to see, again, some of that behind the scenes work. And then a skills competition or a demonstration. I know in the past at our organization, we've held a skills Olympics where we have allowed, teams of our employees to form, and then the education department has put together kind of a little series of skills that they need to progress through. And we've often had great prizes for them at the end of that. And so we've even worked with the media for them to be able to actually execute or try to execute some of those skills themselves. So, helping them understand a lot of the technical capability that goes into being an EMT and a paramedic. Once we've made our pitches, we want to make sure that we have some compelling messages in place to help the media round out these stories. And so when we talk about compelling messages, what does that mean? Well, think about what you see maybe on the news in the evening, or what it is that makes you click through to read a story online. So oftentimes there is an emotional appeal, like we've talked about, a patient component or a provider highlight. Has someone kind of worked to overcome an obstacle? Has there been an incredible recovery from a really serious accident, right? So if there's any opportunity for kind of creating that emotional connection, that's an important part of the message. Also, considering what this means for the well-being of the community. When we talk about those skills, right, we have the reporter come and participate in what it's like to, place an IV. What does that really mean for the community? Well, it means that these folks go through these many hundreds of hours of training in order to be able to place that IV or intubate or deliver a baby in the field. And so really connecting that back to how this matters to people on a day-to-day basis when they call 911 and have an ambulance show up at their home to care for them. Ideally, we want to include data. Some of it can be national, but if you can bring it down again to that community level and help folks understand, how many stroke calls do you run in a month, or how many behavioral health calls do you run when it's Mental Health Awareness Month, or cardiac arrest calls, that sort of thing. I think when you talk about those numbers in your own community, it's a different provides a different lens for people to see the work through. And then, of course, provide a credible subject matter expert or interviewee. I think it's really important that we prepare people inside our organization and set them up for success when they do these media interviews and are willing to help us out with these stories and tell the story of our organization through the media. So you want to make sure to spend a little bit of time preparing your subject matter expert, maybe role playing some questions with them, going over how the interview might go, and then making sure that you have that element in place when you pitch to the media. So those are our compelling messages. And then engaging with the local media. So we might be intimidated when we think about reaching out to the media. We may be worried about how they are going to frame the story about our organization, since maybe 6 months ago we had a late call and that didn't go over well. So I understand that sometimes wanting to engage with the media and actually feeling like you can do it are two different things. So I want to help us kind of create some comfort around that. So first, I would say identify the right reporter. If you've had a contentious relationship with someone, or there is an investigative reporter in your area that's always looking for that kind of, alternate angle, they are not the ones that you want to reach out to tell your story during EMS week. So look for someone who, maybe covers medical or healthcare stories in your community. Maybe the reporter who covers human interest stories is the right one to reach out to, and or someone who has worked with your agency previously, ideally in a positive role. Now, that said, if you are feeling bold and brave and you've had kind of a difficult relationship with the reporter in the past, and now you have these really great stories to tell during EMS week, give that a shot. Reach out and say, I know we've talked about XYZ in the past, and here's what we're really focusing on this week. And I have this great patient recovery story that I want to share. And I know that you've worked on or covered our agency in the past. Are you interested in this story? So those are a couple ways that you might be able to identify a media person in your area that is the right fit. The second thing is to make the time to work make the time work for them and understand their deadlines. So we know, that the news goes on at 5 o'clock, and in our community, the news actually comes on at 4 o'clock. It's getting earlier and earlier and staying on later every day now, I feel like. And so there are a variety of deadlines that we need to prepare for, depending on which reporter, which news outlet you're working for. But again, at the end of the day, we know that they need to flip that switch and have a news broadcast at a certain time. So we want to make sure to respect their deadlines. A couple of options for considering maybe securing coverage, because you're pitching them at a different time than their main, news broadcast. So perhaps a weekend reporter, right? Their news is often lighter on the weekends. And they're maybe willing to cover things that are a little bit, less serious, so to speak. And so they're looking for some of those human interest stories, or some of those education stories on the weekend. Early morning shows, when you think about having to fill an hour or two of early morning content and getting people out of bed starting at 5:30 in the morning to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to talk about CPR, that can be a tough thing to fill as a morning show producer. So if you're offering that subject matter expert and that content for an early morning show during EMS week, I feel pretty confident that your local media is going to jump at that opportunity. And for us in our area, 1100 seems to kind of be a good time. It gives the news media, especially our TV news, the opportunity to have their morning meetings, kind of set up their assignments for the day. And then we know that around that 1100 to maybe 1300, 1400 is a time that they're going to want to come and cover the story, get the visuals, talk to the subject matter experts. And again, that gives them time to wrap up their story before their evening broadcast. So you want to, gauge your events a little bit, perhaps around what might work for some media coverage. And then the third thing is to make it easy for them to cover it. So as we've talked about, provide a comprehensive pitch or press release for story creation. A lot of times I think that, media can kind of take the content that you write in that pitch or that press release and just dump it right into their script. And so you want to make sure to provide some of that data, to provide context about, what the story is, what the patient recovery is, how it is that your provider participated in whatever special call that it was, and really give them some color and context. Remember that what you're pitching to them and what they're covering for you is probably, one out of maybe 4 or 5 stories that they're covering that day. So they're not going to come to you as an expert on what you are pitching. You kind of have to help create that sense of expertise for them. You also want to ensure visuals, whether it's in person or if you need to follow up with sending them some pictures. News anymore, right? We just blow right past anything that doesn't have some sort of kind of compelling visual element to it. And so make sure that when you pitch a story that you have that in mind. Where will you do the interview? Is it in the back of an ambulance? Is it out on the helipad? Is it at the scene of wherever the accident or the call was? Is it in your busy dispatch center? And then make sure that those extra components that they can add in for what we like to call B-roll, right? For them to supplement the visuals of that story. So if it's not possible for them to attend an event, for example, our awards event this year is in the evening. And so we may not get any media there because it's right at their 5 o'clock broadcast time, but we're going to definitely make sure to send our photos with specific cut lines about what it is that they're looking at, and send those to the stations. And often they will, cover that as part of their news broadcast, even with our still photos. So you want to work a little extra on your side to make it easy for them to cover it. And then the last thing here is to make sure, as we said, that your subject matter expert is prepared and available. I think there's nothing worse than making a pitch to the media and then telling them when they want to cover the story that your subject matter expert is on vacation or got called into a meeting and is not available. So, and if that means you have to go a little deeper on your bench to find the right person to accommodate that, then that's what we have to do, because once we offer it, we need to be able to see that through. And then to wrap up this portion, I wanted to just talk a little bit about maximizing your social platforms. So I think it's important to say, stick to the platforms right? I am not going to dip my toe into TikTok during EMS week. That is not the time to try something new along those lines. So you know what you've been doing. And I would say just focus on that for EMS week. Prepare captions in advance. Again, this is one of those things that I find takes more time than either I want it to or that I think it should. And so if you can knock out some of that content a little bit ahead of time, if you know you're going to get pictures of XYZ at this awards event and you happen to know the story behind the award, make sure you kind of build some of those captions out so that you're not trying to do that, at 8 o'clock that night once you've done all of your other jobs that day. And then if you have that prepared, you can usually just kind of double check it and then get it popped up there. Prepare shot lists and deputize people to help. This is something that I have been neglectful at doing. I think, I could just pop around from event to event and handle it. But this year, I actually have reached out to one of our special event EMTs who has a pretty robust online presence for himself. And I said, clearly, you understand how social media works. I think it would be awesome to do two things. One, have you cover EMS week from your perspective as an EMT at Remsa Health. And then also, I'm going to give you this shot list of every event. And I need you to grab those photos for me so that then I can take those and put them into our content. And I think that sometimes, at least I know for myself, I am one of those folks that it's like, I'll just do it. I'll just tackle it. I don't want to bother anybody else with anything more. But people are often excited to help, and it gives them something to do sometimes at the events. And they, like to contribute. So I think definitely look for somebody that can help you out with gathering that content. And then do what has worked in the past. I know for our organization, people love to see their colleagues and family members in their social media posts. Those are easy things for people to share, which of course engagement is what we're looking for when we think about our social platforms. And so do that. If you have a little bit of an equation that has worked for you in social media, stick to what works. And maybe it's, again, capturing content from people in a more candid way and having them submit it from their day-to-day life, right? That kind of behind the scenes stuff, or whatever it is that has gotten that engagement, stick to that. Pictures of your people, like I said, they love to see one another. I think it's a great way to just kind of recognize. It's a very easy, cheap way to engage those folks and acknowledge their contributions. And it can be either formal photos or fun photos. I think a nice combination of both through the week is a great way to get your people's faces out onto your platforms and into your community. And then tagging your partners, obviously, if you get one of those hospitals to host a barbecue for you, you definitely want to make sure to tag them. That obviously expands your reach and engagement. And reels and carousels are really popular right now on the social platforms. And so I would say if you're going to put energy into some social content, these are the formats that are seeming to kind of, that the algorithm, so to speak, likes right now. So you can make sure you post a couple of different pictures for people to swipe through, and reels, ideally. It's so hard. I really struggle with this because there's so much to tell, right? And I want my video to be 3 minutes long when really it probably needs to be 45 seconds long. So better to do a couple of them shorter, and get that content out there for folks to engage with. So, and we can certainly pause for some questions. Otherwise, Randall is teed up and ready to tell you about all of these awesome tools that can help you accomplish everything we just talked about.
Great job, Alexia.
Thanks.
Somebody have questions? Okay. Well, I'm happy to talk to you about some what I call tools of the trade, and Alexia hit on so many great points and so many fresh ideas. And what I want to present are maybe some ways to accomplish a few of those things. And I want to say on the outset, especially the last thing she talked about with reels and videos and things like that, because we'll talk about a little bit of that in my presentation. But I want to make the point of don't let great get in the way of good. Don't feel like it's got to be super polished and super wonderful, and that prevents you from getting anything out. So especially in your internal comms, we even here at Acadian have really gone to using our iPhones and stuff for more of that. And on the internal comms piece, the less polished it looks, the more genuine it comes across. And so I just want to kind of make that point. But we're just going to talk about some of the tools of the trade for EMS Week specifically, and then just in general. Let's see here. Let me get my slides going. All right. So first I want to talk about what's already available. There's some great resources that we'll talk about. Then how do we customize maybe some of that content or other content? We'll talk about some tools for graphic and video creation. And once we create those, where do we host them? We'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about how to publish content, specifically a little bit easier on several social media platforms at the same time. So first I want to look at what is already available, and that is EMS Week or emsweek.org has some terrific tools, including logos. They have social media post visuals already done in the right formats for the different social medias. They've got a couple of videos that are really nice to help explain what EMS Week is all about and the role of EMS. And they've got both a Word and a PDF template for some proclamations if you want to work with your elected officials, as Alexia referred to have them declare locally EMS Week and those types of things. So emsweek.org has some great resources I'd encourage you to go to and check that out. One of the big tools that we use here at Acadian is Canva. And I know Canva is very popular. I'm probably not introducing it to a whole lot of people that don't know about it. The beautiful thing about Canva is, though, it's really designed for people that have no design experience or abilities whatsoever. Although I will tell you, I've got 2 graphic artists that have moved away from designing a lot in their Adobe Illustrator and InDesigns to designing in Canva, because it is so easy, so intuitive, and it's also easier for other members of our staff to go in and make quick edits, whether it's changing a date or something like that, versus InDesign or Adobe. So Canva is awesome for graphics, documents, presentations, infographics, social media posts, GIFs or GIFs, even website design. They've expanded their capabilities in the last few years. They're coming out with something new all the time. They've included even some video production and photo editing capabilities, print products, so you can design a flyer or a poster or a document right there on the platform. And they even now have a way to order specialty items with your design. So it's pretty crazy. The beautiful thing about it too is it's inexpensive. It's actually free. For like a one user, one account type thing. They do have some paid plans as you go up, but it's very, very inexpensive compared to the Adobe products. And so I encourage you to check out Canva. So this gives you an example. This was last year's EMS Week that we took the EMS logos that were provided and just kind of customized them. And, by incorporating our photos, our logos, etc. Again, very simple and intuitive to do using Canva. And we use it to customize graphics, social media, advertising, employee comms, press releases, etc. Just to kind of give you an idea of some of the other capabilities of Canva or some of the other applications, here's some other graphics that we've created over time. And the beautiful thing about Canva is they've got a lot of templates built in. So the smoke detector fire prevention week you see there, that was a template. Independence Day is a template. We're just throwing our logo over it. Hispanic Heritage Month. So again, you don't have to have a lot of design experience. You can just search some templates to get some ideas and plug in a logo and you're ready to go. Another tool we use somewhat is promo.com. Promo.com is, think of it as Canva, but for videography and videos. It'll create videos and GIFs that you can publish to social media, to websites, etc. They create memes. They've got, again, thousands of templates. They have a content calendar to both give you ideas and help you manage your content. And again, you can customize with your own logo and branding to make it easy. Here's a couple of examples of videos that we produced using Promo. This first one is an external comms that we use for, I believe it was Memorial Day, and I'll just play that for you real quick. So again, short, it's 15 seconds. We use this for social media, and we stripe, the footage is there. We put in the graphics and the logo at the very end, very simple to do. This next one is one that we use for internal comms. We're an ESOP, an employee-owned company, and so part of what we do is really encourage our employees to become part of that ESOP, which they do by starting their 401k. Their company matches in company shares, and so we often produce videos and flyers and other things to really promote the 401k and retirement program to our employees. So here's a quick example. So this video and this music is all just a template. So just real simple, throw in some logos, throw in some text, and you're good to go. So once you create a video, and again, this promo is using stock footage. Canva, you can use your own. You can also upload your own footage to promo, and to Vimeo. Vimeo is another product. Vimeo really started off as a platform to distribute or to host your videos, similar to a YouTube. Over the years, they've added tools where they actually now do screen recording. They do live streaming. You can upload and actually edit videos within the platform. Again, super inexpensive, $12 a month, I think, is their starting plan, and it goes up from there, but it still doesn't get very high. It's a great platform to house all of your videos. Each video has its own URL. You can set embed and download options. They've got great variety of privacy settings where a video can be public, it can be private, it can be password protected. You have all those different options. It's got some pretty good analytics on how your videos are doing. As I just mentioned, they've expanded their suite to include some video creation and editing tools, screen record, live streaming, etc. And I've got here safer than YouTube. We do have YouTube channels, and we keep videos on there, which are great because that helps with your search because it's owned by Google. But we don't use it to direct people to specifically because of the suggested videos that come up next to your video. You have no control over those, and they're based typically on your content. But sometimes it might be an off topic or an inappropriate video. If it's something medical, you can imagine what might come up. And we just learned a long time ago that those suggested videos that come up next to yours may not be what you want for your branding. And so we use Vimeo, and so we'll include a link if we want a URL link from there or whatever. And that way it's just yours. So and after your video shows, it shows people your other videos available. So this is the back end of Vimeo that just kind of shows how you can kind of set some stuff up. And then and I apologize that my screen grab was so grainy. I don't know why it is, but this is the public facing of what your Vimeo channel looks like. We also bought a special URL, acadiantv.com, which is a simple way to send people to our videos if we're not using a specific video URL. So if you go to acadiantv.com, this is where you'll come to, and it's just our public facing, and it houses, you'll see here we have currently almost 1,200 videos hosted. So again, once you create your content, how do you get it out? Buffer.com is a terrific way to do if you have several media platforms. So you may just, as one agency, you may have a Twitter, a LinkedIn, a Facebook, Instagram, an X. And instead of going to each of those platforms and putting the same thing in, with Buffer, you can actually put it in one place in Buffer, and you can even just put the same thing in all of the platforms, the same exact copy, or you can tailor it. So for example, if you're limited on characters with X, but you're not with some of the other platforms, so you can easily edit there. You can put it on any or all of those. And you can schedule your post, which is fabulous. So, you don't have to wake up at 6 a.m. on Christmas morning to post a Christmas message. You can schedule them ahead of time. So buffer.com, again, there's a free plan, and then it goes up depending on how many different media platforms you have at Acadian, because we have so many divisions and so many, so many different parts of our company. We have, I think, 30 different social media platforms. So you can imagine this makes it really easy for us to post across multiple divisions and across multiple platforms. Next, I want to talk about AI, and I want to preface this with I am in no way a subject matter expert on AI. This presentation is one I created several years ago, and I've updated it for today, but even if I updated it yesterday, I promise you there's something new tomorrow in AI. But one of the first things I wanted to show you is, talk about is, obviously the options are exploding. It's important to realize that AI, whether it's copy or whatever content, is best used as a tool. It's not the final product. It's a great idea starter. It's a great way to create a first draft and then customize from it. Don't think it's the end all get all, that you'll just type something in and use whatever they spit out. Think of it as a tool to aid in the creative and content generation process. And the reason it shouldn't be considered final, there's often inaccuracies. The databases, ChatGPT, for example, and I think they've changed it recently, but for a long time, when it first launched, they launched it on a certain date in 2002, and that's all it knew. So if you ask who are the last 5 Super Bowl winners, it's going to give you the Super Bowl winners up until 2002. It doesn't know anything beyond that. So just be careful of especially if you're using it for data-driven copy content. Again, there's so many different platforms now with Gronk and a few other ones, and then you have to worry about copyright protection. And I'm not a lawyer. Let me add that disclaimer in, but there's controversy around if you create an image in AI, is it your image or is it copywritten by somebody that is using their base graphic? And so just, be careful of that. But I give you an example of how it can work. And this is actually with Vimeo. And this is a short video that they put together as a training video. Once you generate, you can actually use AI to generate a video. I was going to do that for y'all, but they don't want to take that much time up, but you can actually say, do a video explaining the value of EMS during EMS week and give it your name and your logo and stuff, and it'll create one for you. And then you can edit it either manually or use this to edit. But this will kind of give you an idea of how AI works.
Your videos are being created. Once they're finished, you'll be able to preview them, change the publishing date and time, download them, or tweak them by using the Chat to Edit feature. This powerful feature lets you edit directly through chat. You can replace clips, change captions, text, design music, and even the language, all with simple instructions in the chat box. And if you prefer a more hands-on approach, use Promo's classic editor, accessible through the Edit Video option, for full editing control. For a detailed breakdown of all features, visit the Learn button on your Promo AI Planner page.
Okay, so that just kind of shows how you can edit a video, literally typing in the chat box, change this caption, change this footage. Just gives you an idea how AI works. Here's another one that we use for creating copy AI. Again, you can use, there's a million of them out there. Copy AI is free. We think it's one of the better ones. We probably just haven't found, again, there might be better ones out there that we haven't found yet. But here's an example where I typed in this box, create a blog post about the shortage of emergency medical technicians and paramedics. And it spit this out. So I could start to read that to you. But what I'd rather do is use another tool that is a voice, text to voice tool that will read what that copy AI came up with.
Emergency medical technicians and paramedics are often the first responders to medical emergencies. They provide critical care to patients in emergency situations, and their work can mean the difference between life and death. Emergency medical tech.
So that's a computer generated voice. Again, it's just, I just put the copy in and it reads that, and you can make all kind of edits to what, do you want a child's voice? Do you want a female, male, what kind of tone you want? But these are great if, you know, you don't have to worry about narrating videos. You can throw this over a video that you shoot. And what I love about it is, because we've hired people for voiceovers before and commercials, and you've got to pay them not only to do it originally, but if you keep using it, you've got to pay them rights to continue to use their voice moving forward. So this eliminates that and also helps you edit if there's a short edit. But a lot of times we would narrate our own videos, but this is a terrific way to use professional sounding voices, just computer generated.
Emergency.
This last one I want to show you is a nice way to take one design and make a lot of different layouts. This Ad Creative AI, again, inexpensive, $21 a month or more, depending on the package. Here you can take one photo and one copy and hit generate, and it'll generate all these different layouts for you with just that, those two things. And so again, you're not having to generate 30 or 20 or whatever different things. You can do them right here with this very simple tool. So kind of a recap. For copywriting, we use Copy AI and ChatGPT. For video, we use Promo and Vimeo. There's a few others that are marked down there. For audio, Speech-a-Lo, there's a couple other ones out there. And for graphics, we use Canva and Ad Creative AI. And again, these aren't endorsements of any. The ones that I have an asterisk next to are the ones that we use. So feel free to reach out. My email's on there, and happy to answer any of the questions, or obviously we'll answer some questions now, but that's the end of my spiel.
Awesome. Thanks, Randall. I was taking notes again. I've heard this presentation from you a couple times, and I love it every time, and I learned something new. So hopefully our attendees did as well. So we are happy to take any questions. I'm not sure that I see any in the chat or in the Q&A. We must have answered everything,
They're
Randall.
comms people. They're shy.
That's right. Okay, we'll give it just another minute maybe for some questions. And then
You go through the
before,
Minty, maybe that'll generate some questions.
yeah, that's a good point. So just a quick kind of introduction to this second part of our webinar today is that, and we actually have an extended time today. So hopefully you can all stay with us here until about for another 40-ish minutes. So this year, I'm not sure how many folks we have on that are members versus non-AAA members, but in either case, when President Patford Gresham started her role as president of the AAA this year, one of her initiatives was to meet with all 535 congressional offices and kind of just touch base with all of those elected officials at a federal level to kind of, get a sense from them, meet their needs, talk to them about what we do in our profession. And I was inspired by this and wanted to expand our touch points on behalf of the Public Relations Communications Committee of the AAA and reach out to at least 2 agency members in every state over the next year. And so I'm calling it Project 100. And the idea is that we can connect with members and kind of hear from them directly what kind of successes or challenges or needs you all are having from a communications perspective in terms of providing out of hospital healthcare in your areas. And so what we'd like to do is kind of walk through a couple of these questions today. As Randall said, I think we're going to get some great conversation out of these, and we will start to use your feedback from this session as as the AAA Board of Directors and staff develop a strategic plan that has been in progress over the past couple of months and will be executed over the next number of years. So this is just super informal, and think about it as if we were all just kind of hanging out around a table chatting about things. And we look forward to engaging with you and hearing your responses to some of these questions. So we'll go ahead and get started. I also just want to call out here, hopefully you could see the instructions there. You can join using that website address, and then you put that code in, and then you'll be able to drop your answers in. You can type them in, and then they'll populate in real time on our screen, and we can talk through your responses. So we'll give everybody just a minute to kind of log on to Menti and get connected. Randall, what's your biggest internal communications challenge?
For us, it is, we have, which is not unique. We have a very disparate employee base where they're based not only geographically. I mean, we go from Texas to Tennessee, but obviously, especially for our EMTs, they're in trucks. They're not in front of computers, right? And so we, it's just how to reach them. And so we use lots of different ways to reach them. Sometimes I feel bad because somebody that's connected, whether, they're getting text, they're getting push notifications, or they're looking at our Facebook pages, they're looking at our emails, they're getting it 16 times versus somebody that only uses one. But it's always just how to find, how to get to people, especially employees.
Yeah.
So they feel engaged.
Yep. Agree. All right. And thank you for those of you submitting comments. All of these are anonymous. And so please feel free to be honest and kind of dig in a little to what your challenges and successes are as we go through. Policy changes, consistency. Yep. Being able to connect with them consistently. Engagement by all employees as they are spread. Yep. When I forget where I heard this, but I feel like EMS was the original remote workforce, right? Like everybody now has an awareness about being a remote worker after COVID, especially, right? And there's a lot of conversation and chatter about that. But long before that, we were sending folks away from a base or a central location, or putting them on a base for a certain amount of time for 12, 24 hours a day. And so this is something that we've been, dealing with for a while. And hopefully now we are all feeling like there are more tools and opportunities to help us address these things than ever before, because there's such an awareness across all sorts of professions now. In person versus email versus, best way to
I'd like to look at, some of these, these are all terrific, and we face these all the time. The policy changes, the sharing important information, making sure that people see it. That is what we face every day. And I would say, especially this last one, in person versus email versus app versus text. And you know what? It's not versus, it's all of the above. And kind of like I was just saying, we really do go back and stress that in person, because, the supervisors aren't talking to their people. That's where they hear it. And again, we have some people that read their company emails it's our policy that they should read their company email once a shift. But, how do you police that?
Right.
But what we found is, some people prefer to get text messaging. So we have that option. Some people prefer to read their emails. We have that option. Some people, we have video boards in each station. They look at that. So for us, it's an all of the above way to do it. And, we run some polling internally on what method do you want for communication. Email always comes out first, but then again, we distribute the poll via email because that's always the only way we know how to do it. So I think it's kind of a skewed sample size. The consistency is important. We use our intranet quite vigorously. It's got a great broadcast feature that, will post blocking notifications when they log in. It'll send them emails, it'll send them texts. And, we try to use that outreach sparingly, the push, as I call it. Hopefully they're coming to our intranet every day. But I don't think anybody's got the magic sauce.
No. If you think you do, let us know.
Yeah.
All
There
right.
was one comment too about onboarding people, which I thought was great, because no, that's fine. Because you can certainly, I think it is important that during orientation that you're indoctrinating people into the culture.
Yeah.
That is also where we share, here's how you sign up for text messaging. Here's how you sign up. Here's how you get the app for our intranet. Here's how you communicate. So we do push that heavily, not only learning the culture, but how the mechanics of communicating at
I agree, Randall. We have really given a strong push to setting that expectation in orientation and saying you should be checking your email at least once per shift. If you're not using our employee, online platform, you're missing out. That's where all of the updates are, so yeah, setting that expectation early is important. All right, tell us about your biggest external communications challenge. So that was internal previously. What's your biggest external communications challenge? Getting coverage for positive story. Oh, yes. Okay. All right. Okay.
So on that one, while we're waiting for some more to pop up, I
Yeah.
mean, and you mentioned it during your presentation, patient medic reunions are, PR gold. And obviously, like we end up getting them because patients reach out to us.
Yeah.
And so HIPAA is not normally a problem. Obviously, if they're participating and they signed off on all the documentation, then you're good to go. Other than that, we'll just be very vague that, congratulations to, Medic Smith, who received a patient compliment on how well, they cared for somebody's daughter or something like that. But yeah, HIPAA obviously is a huge area of concern that you need to make sure your communicators, are familiar with.
Definitely. Yeah.
Not having a dedicated PIO, yeah, that's obviously an issue. I think Alexia brought up a great point. I promise you, somebody in your organization loves social media and loves to post for their personal stuff. And so if you can find that person and ask them if they'd be interested in helping out for the company, I'm sure they'd be happy to do it. We had at one point, we were really pushing our TikTok, mainly in our recruiting efforts. And, we had a TikTok team, which was hard to say real fast, but, we had people in each of our operational areas that we asked for volunteers. We did T-shirts and, gave them some swag, and they would submit their TikToks to us. We still had they couldn't post directly on our company platforms, but they created lots of great content for us. And so that's also a lot of the tools I use that I talked about in my seminar that are very simple to use. Again, you may have somebody that loves to do some design on the side. And so seek out, photographers. Got a lot of amateur photographers out there. Seek out some people's hobbies that may match some of your needs and see if you can rope them in.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at that a little bit, about the bad stories about response times, overcoming some of the public incorrect assumptions about things, putting down the service. So I would say it's hard, especially when you don't have someone dedicated to responding to those or engaging those. But I do think some of those are opportunities, and it can be it can be scary a little bit to engage with those, but I think those are opportunities to correct those misperceptions, to provide information and some facts about things. So even if it's a comment on social, obviously you want to probably step back and think about how you're engaging that a little bit. But you want to, if someone has blatantly said something that is not true, you can professionally and appropriately respond to that. I don't think that we should shy away from the opportunity to educate and correct misinformation. And I think that when we talk about the EMS week, these are opportunities to build some of those relationships with community partners and media so that we have these good foundational relationships in place for when some of this tougher stuff comes up. So this is great, great feedback.
Yeah, I would like to add to that or complement that with the people that use social media, community uses social media to complain or put down your service. And that does happen. Unfortunately, we will respond if it's a very blatantly incorrect or inappropriate comment. Obviously, we'll take it down, but there's value in responding to it on social media. So they just talk about maybe, whatever response time, or, we get a lot of, hey, we see one of your ambulances is always parked at the convenience store and the medics are just sitting in the truck. Well, they don't understand it's the posting station. So we would then say, well, what we do is we strategically move ambulances around so that they're closer to areas, blah, blah, and so they're posted there and waiting for a call. So if it's something you can, don't delete or feel like you have to delete or wash every quasi-negative comment. If you answer it on the people see that you're answering, or you can say, hey, we've reached out to you private, directly. We're happy to help you with that. Just so people can see that you're honest and that type of thing.
Yep.
Time consuming for small agency with limited personnel. Don't forget that there's a lot of, it might be a great job for a teenager to bring them in part-time and have them create social media posts and schedule them out, with these very simple tools. The kids are great at it. And, with very little training on what you're looking for, they could really help. Or maybe it's the child of one of your employees that wants to do it. There's lots of opportunities there to have somebody come in from the outside to do the media, social media, especially on the feel good stuff, the fire safety or, food safety at Thanksgiving and heat safety and summer and some of those things, the Mother's Day, Father's Day, those types of posts, they don't need a real base of EMS knowledge to help create those posts for you.
Internships with your local community college or university are a great option as well.
Yeah, terrific. Great.
All right. Have you had a positive story placed in the last year? I know on the last slide, we saw a couple folks struggling with some negative stuff, as we all do. So if you had a positive story placed, tell us what it was about. Share your shine.
And while we wait on those, I do want to make a comment that one of the big things that we preach is to be proactive on our media outreach. So if a reporter never hears from you and they get a story that could be negative, it's going to be negative. If you reach out to media and say, hey, we'd love to do, or you send out a press release with heat safety tips every May we do that, and we get these reporters calling, they want a story, and food safety tips at Thanksgiving or fireworks safety at July 4th or whatever. When you can supply them with positive stories or news and build that relationship, when something does come up that could be acrimonious or potentially negative, there's a trust factor built up. So they will call you to say, hey, how do you want to answer this, or what's going on here? So don't be afraid to reach out to media and send them those good news stories, send them the employee recognition, send them stuff they can use, the safety tips and things to help create that dialogue with media.
100% agree. That's a great one.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Hopefully you made expanded that message and amplified that a little bit by posting it on your social channels, connecting back to that news story. That's always an important way to kind of close the loop there. So thanks,
Yeah,
Samantha.
absolutely. EMSintel.org is a
Yep.
great resource. Look at that, maybe get other ideas. Yeah, patient stories, like I said, that's PR gold. I'm sure your crews go to elementary schools or go to schools for hands-on, touch a truck events. Those pictures are, the kid in the background of the back of the ambulance. Be careful with permission to use those photos. So a lot of times we'll make sure that we shoot them from behind, so you can't see the child's face. You see our medic talking to a kid, but you see the back of the kid so that you're not worried about having to do those. But yeah, those are all great things.
Okay. What are your biggest fears or concerns when interacting with the media? So we're kind of getting some of that vibe here. So yeah. I have a local, I'll just share, I have a local reporter who I had a bit of a contentious relationship with in a previous role, like seriously 20 years ago, probably when I first started working in public relations. And I have been working with her more and more frequently in my role at Remsa Health over the last 7 years. And she is a totally different person. And I think I think it was not our relationship. I think it was the relationship with the previous employer that I had that she struggled with. And she's fantastic. She totally gets what we do. She amplifies our great news stories. So I think, even if we've had difficulty with media or reporters in the past, continuing to recognize the important role they play in helping us share our story is important. And we have to kind of keep offering those olive branches. So flipping the story. Okay. Balance
Yeah,
billing.
I would say, and it kind of goes out to my proactive.
Yep.
And, especially if you've got reporters in your market that report on medical stuff, or take them to lunch, meet them, go sit at the station and talk to them, introduce yourself. The more that you can develop a relationship with them, the more forgiving they may be if something does come up. And I say forgiving very carefully. You never want to insult them to think you can influence their journalistic and credibility. And you never want to even appear as though you're doing that. It's just more of, if they're comfortable with you and they trust you, then they're going to trust maybe your side of that. We've called reporters after the story came out and said, we think you kind of missed the point on this, and it's really incorrect. Would you consider changing that? We had an investigative reporter that was doing a story on balance billing, and used some, it wasn't about us, but they used some B-roll that had our ambulances in it. And so, we just called them to say, hey, we're not the focus of the story, but our ambulance is in it. Could you change out that? And they did. Sometimes they won't, but again, just feel free to have dialogue with reporters.
Yeah.
Being
Agree.
misquoted, I would also say nothing is ever off the record. Don't think that works.
Yep.
Yeah, so be very careful. A lot of times we will respond in writing because it just helps to keep it very clear. You don't get kind of caught up in something. And quite often I'm still amazed sometimes when the media will actually put up our statement verbatim. And so I'm not saying hide from talking to them on the phone, but if it's something that could be potentially contentious or very specific and fact oriented, I would definitely say respond in writing so that it's very
Absolutely.
clear.
That's a great point, Randall, for sure.
And not marketing fluff, right? I mean, just be concise and to the point, and give them bullet points. They're busy, and the more you can make the job easier for them, the better it is.
Totally agree. And along that same line, as nothing is ever off the record, that if you don't want to see it on the news or in the newspaper, don't. don't say it to a reporter, right? And so, if you're in the middle of escorting them onto the property and you get a phone call and say, oh, sorry, I have to grab this about a patient drop, like that, expect that they are always, having their reporter hat on. So you want to treat that with due respect.
And lastly, and again, we're communication people, so we talk too much. The one about balanced billing, which we all suffer with, and I would say, long response times. Bring a reporter in to talk about the billing issue before it happens. Talk about how, hey, this is a big thing in EMS right now. AAA's got some great position papers and great resources to help on discussing these things. And so if they have a better understanding, even before something comes up, same thing on response times where, you can bring them to your dispatch center, let them see what's going on, and sometimes how 4 emergencies pop up at one time, and how we triage calls so that we're providing help before an ambulance arrives and things like that. When you can bring them in before, when there's not a story, to create the story you want, it's better. I'll shut up now.
How are you allocating resources for your key communications priorities? So we have social media, news media engagement, internal communications, or government relations. So both money and time, because those are different, different resources. Tell us about how that works in your agency. Okay.
Yeah, again, a lot of the stuff we've talked about today is free. We call it earned media in the marketing world, where you get your medic on the morning show to talk about CPR event or something where you don't pay for it. That's what we call earned media. So yeah, and then obviously there's paid media where you actually run an advertisement, which we've done before, just some branding.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Government relations is getting a lot of the resources.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, look at that. Interesting. Okay. Yep.
This is your host hopping in to say that if it is too complicated to use the time and money matrix, you can also just use the send a comment function at the bottom of your screen.
Perfect. Great.
Interesting.
Oh, look at this. It's so cool.
Pretty disparate, yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
I guess
Interesting.
the big factors here
Yeah.
is don't let money stop you, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
There's so many inexpensive resources. Social media is free. Even if you have to pay somebody, a few bucks an hour to help create posts. But it's amazing the shift of advertising dollars has really gone away from running ads, because you can reach so much through social media now. It's just incredible.
Agree. And there's also from the same perspective on money, that there are ways that you can boost your content for very low amounts of money. It's not that you need a, $50,000 paid media campaign anymore. You can boost a social media post for $100 or $20 or something like that. So, there's still ways to kind of get that message out there.
Yeah, even paid media, or I'm sorry, traditional media. So, TV stations, radio stations, I think they call them newspapers. They've cut staff so much that they are dying for stories. So when you send out a press release about something, they're going to run it, especially print. They just have cut newsrooms back so much. And even on, your TV stations, they used to send out a reporter and a camera person, and now they're video journalists. And so they are looking for stories. So you can do a lot without actually having to pay for an ad.
Definitely. Look at that. Okay. Being an active member of the Chamber of Commerce. Great. So yeah, it's those community relations is a way to kind of maximize both of those resources. That's a good call out. What is your level of engagement in social media? What kinds of posts do you find most effective? So Randall and I both touched up on this a little bit in our presentations, and for us, some of our bread and butter posts are those employee recognition, like compliments from patients, shout outs from colleagues, babies. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
And
Providers holding.
don't forget puppies and kittens too.
Yes. Yeah. We have found babies are also a winner for our dispatchers as well. And in fact, we have one dispatcher who I think in the last year assisted with delivering 6 babies over the phone, which is like incredible, I think, for one dispatcher. So those are winners across the board.
Yeah. But you know, we laugh about babies and puppies and kittens. We did a campaign once where we asked our and this is great for internal comms and internal relations, but it gave us collateral that we could use externally. We asked our medics to send in a picture of them with their pet, have somebody take a picture of them with their pet.
Yeah.
And you just post it. Here's Alexia with her, iguana George. And you'd be surprised,
that.
but it
Yeah.
also puts a pup, it puts a face on your service. You're not the big box, you're and it really helps personalize. Your employees love it. And so it's a great way to get content.
Yeah. I love these responses. These are
Yeah,
all perfect.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah, exactly. We just actually did a what's on the truck post with a paramedic who showed us our new video laryngoscopes. And so he was able to give us a little demo on a mannequin, and that one did really well. Short stories about the crew, stop the bleed. I think the education department is a gold mine for social media posts and news media stories. I am constantly knocking on our education department's door because there's just always something going on over there. It's a public facing department. And then, between that and the education programs for providers, we also just have been doing lately it started maybe last fall, where we feature our mannequins from our education department in social media posts. And just yesterday we had a mannequin showing us about the dangers of distracted driving so
Nice.
Yep.
Bill, I love that. I'm going to steal that idea. Of course, I watch your
Oh.
social media. I steal a lot of ideas from Bell. Y'all are great.
Mhm. That is so sweet. Love it. Great responses. All right. Tell us about your annual budget for communications. So we said paid and earned media, non-salary. So this isn't, the folks in your department. This is really what you spend money on for either paid campaigns or earned, which is social and news. Okay.
Yeah, at Acadian, I think probably 90% of our dollars that we do spend are spent online advertising, and typically they're all around recruiting, right? Everybody's got a staffing issue. We
Yep.
don't typically spend a ton of money on our more public relations type of posts and media, but we do sometimes for branding. It's important to get it out there.
Yep. Agree. Okay. So we so appreciate that you spent time with us today on this webinar. And like Randall said, we're communications folks. We love to talk just in general. We love to talk about what we do. We're obviously very passionate about it. So tell us a little about what plans you have to expand your communications and public relations knowledge and skills over the next year. That will help us kind of think a little bit about how we can support those educational endeavors. And maybe it has nothing to do with AAA, or maybe it's a community college class, or an online session through a different professional group.
Well, the number one answer is we're going to Lexington to the fabulous AAA conference. And while we're there, we're going to take the marketing and PR track where you and I, along with others, are presenting. And that'll keep Amanda from having a fit behind the scenes over here.
Register often, register early, register
Yeah.
multiple times. Yeah, it's gonna, if any of you have not yet attended a AAA conference, we cannot recommend it highly enough. And
I like the expand media strategy for marketing and recruiting. And just so I can kind of say, you know, keep in mind, sometimes you can double dip. So all of our recruiting ads are all about, you know, be part of something bigger, make a difference, you know, join a wonderful team. They do brand, right? I mean, they're talking about how wonderful Acadian is. But they also, the hook, I guess, is the recruiting message.
yeah,
A new website. Oh, that's always fun.
I was just gonna say that's so exciting and that is so much work. So who's ever doing that, hang in there, it'll be worth it. More active on social media to keep algorithms high. Okay, good. All right.
Here we go. What topics do we need for the future, guys?
Please feel free to suggest if you've had a success or if you've, had some great campaign. We would love to hear from you as well about that. So yes, I agree. The more we can learn about AI, the better. Yep. Canva tips. I have to say that I probably am in Canva 2 to 4 times a day. So that is a hugely helpful tool.
Yeah, and it's great. They keep expanding what it does. I think that the latest one is you can upload a spreadsheet and it'll help you visualize it. I mean, it's just
Oh
nuts.
my
But
gosh.
yeah, and I'm not, you know, obviously I just touched on it. I'm not the expert, but we have some. So yeah, these are great ideas because we could definitely
Yes.
set up some things where you can bring in some other people.
Examples and strategies. Okay. Great ideas.
Yeah, and I guess how to communicate mental health awareness and EMS is essential. Yeah.
Yep. And then as Randall mentioned, yes, we are headed to Lexington for the AAA annual conference this year. So many great sessions. My only complaint is that there are too many good sessions that I want to go to that I won't be able to hit all of them. So, but while you're there, definitely check out these additional public relations sessions from yours truly, here, Randall and me, and then also Adam Paluca will be doing a session as well. So lots of good information and a fun time, great opportunity to connect and network with colleagues.
You know, Amanda, I'm going to throw out an idea or a thought, totally off guard, but maybe can't do it this year, organized wise, but I would love 15, 30-minute time slot somewhere where just people can bat around ideas for social media content. You know, I mean, the bell with the pajamas is fabulous, and you know, the puppies and the babies and some of the other ideas that we've heard here today. And this would, you know, this not for marketing people. I mean, anybody can have the idea, but because I think so much of what we talked about today, there's lack of time and lack of resources. So social media is free. Time is, you can do it pretty quickly, especially with some of the tools we did, or you can again hire somebody cheaply. But if we came up with a list of 100 different ideas of post topics or areas, I think it'd be very helpful to the group in general.
I wonder if there's a way this year, I love that idea, Randall. If there's a way we could do that like either virtually or hard copy, almost have like a whiteboard somewhere or a
Ooh.
poster board or somewhere where people could just from all over the conference just pop in their ideas.
Oh, I like that.
Absolutely, chair and vice chair. We will get on that. We'll figure out a way to put some kind of collaborative thing. I can envision a sticky note solution.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
near registration or near the conference session rooms. And anyone on this call, as they mentioned, we would love to see you for Four Cs, Bourbon, and Communications in Lexington. If you register this week, it is still early bird pricing, and we will make sure that you can participate in Alexia and Randall's soon to be famous post-it wall of EMS comms ideas.
I love it. I love it.
Brought to you by 3M.
Yeah. Well, we have it looks like just a couple more minutes in case there are any other questions or ideas that we want to share. And then as you're getting those last posts there, we have an EMS week op-ed guide and template that the communications committee and AAA staff worked to put together. So this is a great, really kind of plug and play opportunity for folks where you can download this guide and this template. One is basically written, and you can just drop in your organization or agency names and stats and send that off to your local media, post on your social channels. And it's just an opportunity to affirm the importance of EMS in your community during EMS week. And then also you should have received in an email already, but then here is a link to today's slide deck that includes both Randall's and my slides, so you can make use of those resources in the future. All right.
Very cool.
Randall, is there anything else you want to add?
No, ma'am. Looking forward to seeing you in Lexington and visiting with people. And my email address is on my slide, and feel free to reach out and share ideas or ask questions. I'm happy to participate and learn, because I learn something from everybody. I'm kind of greedy that way.
Yes, agree. Absolutely. So same. I look forward to seeing all of you in Lexington. Thank you for spending time with us today. Good luck with your EMS weeks. Share your successes. You can always send them in or tag us, and we'd love to see those. So good luck.